turn the monitor around so I can see everyone? Or is that possible? Yay! Hi everyone. Thanks for being patient and through technical difficulties. Hangouts are fantastic. They're such a fantastic tool when they work properly. And really apologize for all the difficulties and thanks for being patient this afternoon. So let's just see a show of hands. How many people have a bachelor degree from the university? Have a BA? Okay. How many people have some college education, some diplomas and things like that? Yeah. Okay. How many people have all their education in the humanities? So history, English, geography, that kind of stuff. How many people are science people? Biology? No. Okay. I have a BA in history from Dalhousie University, and between 2010 and 2012, I did a master's in museum studies through Johns Hopkins University. And so my background, even though I do social media right now, my background really comes from history, and the reason why I work in a museum is because I love history, and I wanna make sure that the next generation figures out that history is really cool, and the stories that come from objects, they can be either really boring. It all depends how they're told, and so I'm really interested in sharing history and sharing the cool stories and making it fun and engaging, and making sure that it engages with today's youth and next generation, and doing that in ways that meets them where they are. So through technology a lot, and my master's at Johns Hopkins really taught me all about that. Hi everyone else. I got my start. I'm from Nova Scotia, and when I was doing my history degree, the Public Archives of Nova Scotia was on campus at Dalhousie University, so I walked down and I asked for a volunteering job. And I started on the reference desk, and I basically did research for people. So I put all the skills that I learned during my undergrad in history, doing research in library and archives, and really did genealogy for people. So finding their family history for them, and just finding more resources. And I thought that was really, really fun way to get involved. And that's before I moved to Toronto, and when I was looking at moving here, my supervisor at the time, her name's Lois York, and I believe she's still at Public Archives. She told me that history degrees are great. They teach you to critique the world, but they don't teach you to work in them. So she really emphasized, getting that extra experience on top of the education, volunteering whenever possible, trying to do whatever it is to set you apart from everybody else. And so I really took that to heart, and I've never said no to a volunteering or speaking engagement or anything like that. I always use it as an opportunity to gain more experience and add to my skill set. So when I moved to Toronto, I got a job selling audio guides here at the museum, and it was sort of my first job out of university. And all I did all day was try to sell audio guides to people. And I quickly moved into the membership and visitor services portion of the museum, and I worked on the front desk for a few years. And I supervised all the people that sold admission tickets on the front desk. And while I was doing that, I volunteered in a bunch of different places. I volunteered in the anthropology department in the museum, and I volunteered in the library and archives on my days off. And really, I knew I always wanted to get back to the research side of things, but I didn't want to lose the skills I had already gained. So I made sure that I kept those sharp. And just from there, like I said before, I never said no to an opportunity. So when social media and the mobile stuff started taking off in 2008, 2009, I became involved in that because I saw it as a great way to use as a tool to excite people about history and about the museum. So and in 2012, we finally had this job come up, and I was lucky enough to get it out of lots of applicants. So really, how do you get started? Part of it's luck, but part of it is just making sure that you're doing what you love, and you're not saying no to any opportunities that come along, and just keep working hard. Hope that answers your question. Can you guys still hear me? Thumbs up if you can. Yeah, okay, good. Yeah, so after I worked on the front desk for a while and was volunteering in the library and archives, a lady retired in the library, and I was lucky enough to get her job because I had been working a couple of days a week in the library and archives for a few years, and it's funny, on the first day that I started in the library, I got an email that said I was accepted into the Johns Hopkins program. So it was a great day for me. I got a new job, and I found out I was going to be doing my master's. So the Johns Hopkins program, because it's almost a fully online program, it really focuses on using technology as a tool in museums and cultural heritage organizations. So a lot of the work that we did was just that, focusing on technology, how to use it as a tool, the purpose, the theory behind it, that sort of thing. And the first project I worked on was I did a strategic and content plan for an iPhone app. And I was lucky enough to find a friend who was teaching himself to build iOS apps at that time. This was in 2010. Apps there weren't very many apps on the iStore or the App Store at that time. So it was really new for a lot of museums. And we were just experimenting, and really all it did at that in 2010 was repurpose the website. This is before websites were responsive and they fit on all your phones like they do today. And I was just lucky enough that my boss in the library knew I was enthusiastic about this stuff, and he really let me dabble in my spare time. If I had all my work done, he'd let me do research and that sort of thing. And this is where there was no oversight for mobile or social media at the museum at this time. There was no overall strategy or plan at this time. There was just a bunch of us that were sort of dabbling in this space. So it was sort of the Wild West of mobile and social at the museum, where we had a group of about there were maybe 30 of us that had an interest in the area, and then there was a smaller group of 5 to 6 of us we called the steering committee, and we would meet every month or every couple of weeks, and we would go over trends and things that were happening, and we would start up accounts and claim our name and things like that. But there was no, we didn't really have the time or the focus to really spend on social or mobile. and the worst thing you can do with this kind of stuff is not have a plan for things and just try to go at it guessing as you go along. It's always better if you have an idea of what you want to accomplish. You set out some goals and try to reach those. So finally, in 2012, after about 2 years, we convinced the museum that we needed someone full time on social, and I was lucky enough to get the job. There's still no one person that handles mobile projects at the museum. Depending on what we're looking at, if it's sort of a game or a standalone app, it depends on what it's trying to accomplish, where it falls within departments or in the organization. Sometimes we'll have third parties that'll come in and they want to do an app for us. So we've had that happen. We have an app called Scopify right now that came through a company called Kensington, who put together the Museum Secrets TV show. So that's one app that we have right now. But really, with the rise of the mobile web and responsive design, we're actually moving away from building platform-specific apps like iOS and Android apps, and just making sure that everything we do is responsive. We're doing a lot of web-based applications now and things like that. So that's how, that's what I was doing with mobile. Back then, I was experimenting with an app called Scavenger that's no longer in existence, but really what it was a mobile scavenger hunt on your phone. And I worked with the education department, and basically we just repurposed existing scavenger hunts and put them on a phone for kids. And we had a year pilot. Like I said, Scavenger is no longer running as a company, but it was great to experiment. I think that's the first time I met you, Dave, was when we were playing with Scavenger. I think that was 2011 when we had that going. And it was really fun, but it was really hard to make sure people knew that we had that app running. There was no money whatsoever put behind the project, so these days we're in a transition period. You can't just have something that lives online and expect people to really engage with it. You have to have signage in the building. You have to have a presence on the web somewhere and on social behind it to make sure people know that we have these cool things happening. So we didn't have that for Scavenger, so that's why I think it didn't go as far as it did. But it was a fun little thing. We used to push people around the whole building to exhibits that they never usually go to. We had kids up in the Grease Gallery, and kids usually never leave the second floor of the museum where all the dinosaurs are. So it was really fun to see, where we could show people, where we could move people through the building. It was really fun. Yeah, I think there was a lead-on question from that, maybe. And if anyone has any questions, just shout out. I don't want to make too much work for you, Dave, there, but. How did I get senior management interested in what I was doing? I'm really lucky here at the ROM. We have a director and CEO, Janet Carding. You can follow her on Twitter. Her handle's @JanetCarding. She's really interested in this stuff as well. She knows people that are doing this kind of work at other institutions. She's very connected in this community. So really, it all stems from her. And she was the one that okayed my current position, that saw value in it and continues to see value in the web and social, in our online presence in general. So really, it was all her doing, and I can't take much credit for this, for our activity it really all stems from her, and she did a lot of convincing to the board and to everyone else to make sure that we had people doing this full time. Before I came into did I just freeze? Before I came into this role, there were multiple people doing social whenever we had time, and our presence wasn't consistent. We weren't talking to anyone. We weren't having a dialogue. We were just posting stuff whenever we had time, and really, that's not what social is all about. It's really about building relationships with your community through dialogue. And if you don't have someone actively doing that on a day-to-day basis, it's not going to work for you. There's lots of museums, lots of institutions, lots of companies out there that just post content to post content, like, because they think they need to. And in my opinion, that's the wrong way to go about social. You're not trying to just add to all the noise out there. You're trying to cut through that noise with something interesting that's going to engage your community in a dialogue, in a back and forth conversation. That's the value of social, is that two-way conversation. And so Janet is really really aware of that, and I'm lucky that I have that senior management buy-in from her. All right, good question. What is the relationship between what you are doing with social media and marketing? So, like I said, this job was created in July 2012, and originally, when I started in this role, I reported to the head of communications. And so, communications and marketing work very closely together. They're under the same VP. And so really, my boss's boss was the VP of Marketing and Communications. So I worked very closely with marketing and comms. And about a year after that, I quickly realized that what I was doing was web-based, and that it would make more sense for me to report to the web manager. So right now, I sit within my physical desk location is with the marketing team and the comms team, but I report to the web manager. So, it's closely related to marketing. A lot of people will call social media and what people do on social media content marketing. I don't know if you guys heard of that, but basically what I do on a day-to-day basis is content marketing. And so a big aspect of my job is making sure what I'm communicating on social is integrated with what the marketing team and what the comms team are doing. So whenever a press release goes out about a new exhibit, I make sure that there's a tweet and a post on Facebook at the same time. So whenever the comms team sends out that press release, you'll also see stuff from us on social about whatever that thing is. These days, you got to have an integrated approach through social, marketing, web, and comms, and that's what we try to do. So to answer that question, I don't directly report to the marketing team, but we work closely together. And I don't have a budget for social media, so if I ever do want to do any advertising on social or anything like that, I do have to ask nicely of the marketing team for some of their budget. And some of that stuff, is built into if we're having a major exhibition, some of the marketing budget will be earmarked for social, and that's becoming more and more regular as the years go on. We're just seeing more and more ad spend on the web, on Google AdWords, and also on other websites, but also on social. And I think you'll see that with a lot of different organizations. Will continue to move a lot of their budget over to web and social spending. The question is, the social media Bible, is it available for students to take a look at? Dave, I'm happy. Uh, Dave's talking about our web and social media guidelines. It's about a 9-page document that was created, and it was a collaborative document. I talked earlier about the social media steering committee that we had before I came into this role. We collaborated on a larger document. It was about 27 pages at that time. And when I came into the role full time, I cut it down to 9. And really, it includes we try to encourage social media activity on a personal level of our staff at the museum, but we do a lot of training, and we do have these guidelines as sort of a document that people can fall back on. And yeah, Dave, I'm happy to share that. I'll email it to you, and you can distribute to the class if you like. The other thing is that it is an internal document, so just please don't share it beyond your class if you could. Thanks. Good question, Dave. I'll just continue reading out the questions just because I know this is being recorded. The question was, in my experience, it isn't easy to get the board to adopt new policy. How did you manage to get a board social media policy adopted? Um, it was actually not as difficult as it could have been. There's What I did was, we have existing board policies for using our IT systems and infrastructure, so using computers and the internet in the building. We have a board policy for communications, internal and external, and harassment and all those kind of things that big organizations have. And really, what I did is I just inserted social media into all of those policies. So I didn't write a specific, social media policy, but I made sure that they were all slightly updated to include social media. So it's actually, it wasn't that difficult. It was one of the first things that my boss had me do. The head of communications was look at all the different board policies and see where I could insert social media to make sure that we were covered. The web and social media guidelines that I wrote is really just it's not an official policy. It's more just a set of guidelines for staff. So, it doesn't have the official, board stamp of approval on it, but it does have the approval of Janet and my bosses on down from there as the official guidelines of how we want people to act on social. So it's a bit of a combination of the two. And really, with the creation of my role as social media coordinator, you know, we needed something, you know, because I was going to be in this space 24/7 and working in the space and experimenting in the space. We really needed something that really, you know, covered us in case of anything happening. And so that was, again, one of the very first things I did was pare down that huge guidelines document into what we have today. I guess I didn't really mention what I actually do on a day-to-day basis. Do you want me to talk a little bit about that, or is that in a follow-up? I remember seeing it on the list. I can talk about that. Okay. So day-to-day, I'm a unionized employee. I'm supposed to work 35 hours a week. I usually double that, just because the nature of social media, it never shuts off, and you know, if we're going to do it, we're going to do it right, and that means working at odd hours and on weekends and evenings. You know, there's lots of organizations that will say our social media hours are between 9 and 5 Monday to Friday, and you know, that's just not the way things work these days. You know, there's no traditional work week anymore. So if you're looking at you know, coming into a role like this at an organization, you really have to be prepared to work whenever is needed. And so, you know, there'll be times when you know, showing up at the office doesn't really apply to me because my office comes with me wherever I go. So, you know, you really have to make sure that that you're aware of the workload that it is. And lots of my colleagues around the world are struggling with the time management of social and how they work it. A lot of people, this year, I'm seeing lots of people expand their social media team to more than one person, which is nice to see, or making it a part of existing staff's paid duties. So there's three main aspects of my job. The one is the creation and publishing and monitoring of content on our social media platforms. So all the tweets from ROM Toronto, all the posts on Facebook, all that stuff. If it doesn't originate from my brain, it comes from someone in the institution, and it's been edited and by me and then scheduled or posted. I do a lot of training and coaching of staff. So we hold monthly workshops here at the museum, and we call them web and social media workshops. We just had one today, and they're an hour long, and we usually spend 10 or 15 minutes at the beginning talking about one small aspect of the web and social media world. So, and then we use the rest of the hour for discussion or questions or tutorials or something like that. And so today we talked about Google Drive. Last month we talked about tagging user Twitter handles in photos and adding multiple photos. So it's really like we don't talk about Twitter in 10 minutes because that would be impossible. There's so much to talk about, but we talk about one aspect of one platform in these sessions. And then I go around and I sit down with people one-on-one. And you know, there's lots of times people are a little shy asking questions in big groups, and you know, so I'm more than happy to go and sit in a curator's office and talk to them about starting a Twitter handle and how that works and how they fit it into their day-to-day, and giving them, you know, taking the mystery out of social for them and that kind of thing. And then the third aspect is experimentation. I'm really lucky working in this space and working under the people that I do. They kind of give me free reign to experiment with different tools and different platforms. Our Google Hangouts came from that. So really just you know, keeping on top of trends, keeping on top of new platforms that are coming out, making sure that we claim our space, even though we may not have a strategy around that new platform, making sure that we've claimed our name for marketing purposes, and you know, look at it, see what other people are doing, and see how we can use it possibly in the future. So it's a pretty fun job, but you know, it is a lot of work. My wife would like me to work less, you know, but right now it's sort of early days for social and becoming more integrated within the overall organization. But I would say you'll see in the next year or two, you'll see more people working directly with social, not just at the museum but all over. It's just becoming so integrated with everything we do these days that there just needs to be more hands on deck, and I think you'll see that coming up, hopefully. So the question is, so Twitter, Facebook, any other important social media channels for the ROM? Google Plus is our #1 platform by network size. We have more followers on Google Plus. We have like 30,000 more followers on Google Plus than we do on Facebook. And then it's Twitter, and then Facebook. We also have a Tumblr account that I haven't told anyone about. We also and that's separate from the ROM Kids Tumblr, which is very successful. We even have a Snapchat account that I haven't told anyone about. So those are the those are some of the accounts that I'm still not sure how we're going to use to our benefit, the benefit of our community. But we even have an Ello account as well. Do you guys know about Ello? It's supposed to be the Facebook without advertising. But anyway, for us, our focus is definitely on Twitter. We've been on our main account. We've had for 4 years now, and we made a conscious decision about a year ago to move our focus away from Facebook and to move it towards Twitter. And we did that by looking at the data that we gathered on with all of the activity we've had on Twitter. And when I started in 2012, we had 7,000 followers on Twitter, and we now have over 60,000. And we've gained that following by having conversations with people, by building relationships. It wasn't until about 6 months ago that we actually started spending tiny amounts of money on Twitter advertising. So really, all of that growth in our community was done organically through conversations with people and sharing good content and igniting dialogue. And that's really the whole basis of social media. And I think some people lose sight of that. So looking at all that data, I said to my boss, let's focus on Twitter. Every staff member has a Facebook page. Everyone has a Facebook page. But not a lot of people have Twitter. But the value you can get from Twitter, from conversing with your community, is huge. So if you come to the museum and you get a printed floor plan, you'll actually find the personal Twitter handles of curators on our printed floor plan. So if you're standing in the dino gallery and you only can fit so much on a tiny little label, if you want to know more about that dinosaur, well, guess what? You can look in the map and you can tweet at our dinosaur curator and say, hey Dave, I want to know more about this dinosaur right here, and send him a picture, and hopefully he'll reply back. And you can do that throughout the museum. We've really tried to integrate our Twitter activity throughout the museum. We've got a Pinterest account too, and I still not really sure that the Pinterest account was started before I came into this role, and it was really just someone started up because they thought we should have one, not really thinking about how we would use it. And so I haven't really found a way for it to be beneficial for us. So it's another one of those accounts that we just kind of laid dormant. We also have an Instagram account that we're starting to use a lot more lately. If you guys Google ROM social media, you can find a list of all of our active accounts. And I'm actually gonna screen share. Let me see if I can do this. Cancel. We have a whole list, and it lists our objectives for social, and it lists all of our active accounts on there. And you know, you guys can click on any of them, and it'll take you right to them. But really, you know, I'm not. My job isn't to say no to any one social media platform. We want to make sure that we're meeting our audience on social. So we actively look at different things. We haven't done any stuff on Reddit yet, but we've been keeping an eye on it. AMAs are possibilities for our curatorial staff on Reddit, so been looking at those. But really, it comes down to time and resources, and I'm only one person, so you know, if we had tons of people and tons of money, we'd do tons of things. But we're only one person with no budget, so we do what we can. But I'd say for us, by platform size, it's Google+, Twitter, and Facebook, and by our focus, it's Twitter, and then Facebook and Google+, because we do Hangouts. Oh, good question. Who asked this question? I want to see, put up your hand. You over there sitting in by yourself. Good question. I'll read it out loud. How has social media data collected influenced your plans for future programs? I would love to do more data mining on our accounts. My boss and I used to produce monthly data reports that we would post on our we have an insight where you can only like an internal employee website that only people can access when you're on site, and we used to post these reports, and you know, she would do the web analytics through Google Analytics, and I would do the social stuff, you know, the things that we posted that month that did really well, or you know, a cool conversation we had with someone or something like that. And I would love to do more of that, but you know, no one asks us any questions ever about the data about the reports that we posted. Whether that was because they didn't understand what we were talking about, or you know, they didn't see the value in it, or something. I'm not sure. But I use it all the time. I look at the data behind the different messages that I send out on Twitter. I do a little bit of A/B testing, where I'll send out a couple of tweets that are about the same thing, but are worded slightly different, just to see how they'll do. And I also send stuff out at different times, and I try a few different things to see what gets more traction, and then I find the one that does, and I repeat that. And maybe the question is about programs like physical programs inside the museum. Can't see you anymore, so if is that what you meant? Yeah, shake your head if I'm kinda. Okay. We've done a little bit of crowdsourcing, like the title of the Mesopotamia exhibit that we had last summer was crowdsourced on our Facebook page. Also, the narrative of that exhibit was crowdsourced. So we asked people when they heard the word Mesopotamia, what did they think of? And so a lot of people said beer. A lot of people said civil planning, law, writing, all that kind of stuff. And all that stuff was invented in the Mesopotamian civilization. So we used all the stuff that people said as the narrative of that exhibit. Our exhibit design team built the exhibit around what people thought of when they heard the word Mesopotamia, which was kind of cool. So we have done a little bit of that crowdsourcing stuff. We don't do it all the time. I'd love to do more of it, but you know, there's some people here that still feel that it's not really something we should be doing all that often. But you know, we do what we can. Other than that, I do keep an eye on our reach and our retweets and our mentions and all that kind of stuff on Twitter to see how we're doing month to month, to see if the content that we were sharing, you know, see how far it went, to see how many people interacted with it, to really inform what I do month to month. We do some programs are highly integrated with social media, like Friday Night Live is pretty much only communicated through social media. There's very little traditional marketing money spent on Friday Night Live. It's mostly all social media. So that's a big one. And these days we're actually trying to include a hashtag for all of the programs and exhibits that we do to make sure that there is that digital presence with our programs. And so, you know, it's really been the last 6 months where we've actually tried to include it on all of the signs and posters and things like that. So we're really just ramping that up. And you know, I'm not the final decision maker on programs and things. I can only provide the data that I can provide and to help inform. Some people see it as something that's valuable in our decision-making process, and some people don't. So, you know, I wish I was at the level where I could say, you know, this is really important. This shows actually what people are doing with our content, and you know, we should try to do this thing because this is what the people are actually doing, not what we think they're doing. But you know, that'll change eventually, hopefully. So I think the question is, where are we going with Google Hangouts in the future? Was that the question? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Google Hangouts, I think they're really great. Sometimes they don't work as expected. You really have to be on your toes when you're doing Google Hangouts. Google changes a lot of things. It doesn't tell anyone. So sometimes you'll log in to do a Hangout and all the buttons are in different places and things like that, which can be fun. But I'm almost 100% sure we were the first museum in the world to launch a Google Hangout program. MoMA in New York did one 2 days after us in April 2012 or 2013, and you know, I think they were promoting theirs before we started ours, but we did one on our first one on April 2nd, and I think we beat them by 2 days. So that's unconfirmed. We're definitely the first museum in Canada to do Google Hangouts, and the way I sold it to the marketing team was they were looking for engaging video content to put on our website to launch our Center for Biodiversity. And April is Nature Month in Canada, so we wanted to do it in April. And our fiscal year ends March 31st, and a new one starts April 1st. And this was 2 weeks before the end of fiscal. We had no money left in the bank. We had no resources, staff resources, to produce this engaging video content that the marketing team wanted. So I was sitting in this meeting with everyone's scratching their head, and I said, what about Google Hangouts? And at this time, they were so brand new, everyone just kind of looked at me like, what's a Google Hangout? And so I explained it, and the marketing person at the time kind of just said, yeah, sure, Ryan, go ahead and do your thing. Just go along and do it. And that first month, we did a Hangout every Tuesday and Thursday through the month of April. And so it was a little crazy, but we really just used it as we were basically experimenting live. And the value of doing a Google Hangout as opposed to, say, a Skype chat is that because it's a Google property, it's linked to your YouTube channel, and if you do it on air, it gets automatically recorded and uploaded to your YouTube channel. So you can go on the ROM's YouTube channel, and you can see the archive of, I think it's over 30 Google Hangouts that we've done now, and you can watch them. Our Hangouts have been viewed by people in over 45 countries. They've been viewed, I forget the total number of minutes watched, but it's somewhere over like 6 days worth of minutes watched, and we only ever do a Hangout for 30 minutes. So, it's part of the value of doing the Hangout is having that archived content that we can repurpose or use in other ways. Right now, if you come to Friday Night Live and you go to the second floor, you'll see a loop of Hangouts in the Earth Ranger studio that relate to the theme of the evening. So it's just the ability to capture that and repurpose it later on, and it doesn't cost us any money. We spent $100 on a webcam in 2013, and that's the only money we've ever spent on our Google Hangout program, and we've done them. We try to do one a month. We don't do them in December or January, but we try to do one a month throughout the year, and we try to bring in colleagues from around the world. We did one recently on the Burgess Shale, and we have the largest collection of fossils from the Burgess Shale in the world. And colleagues from all over the museum or all over the world come with our ROM team to go excavate at the Burgess Shale every summer. And so we did a Hangout with a colleague in Sweden, and a Hangout with researchers here at the museum, and then a colleague in Saskatchewan about the Burgess Shale. We did one about mummies with colleagues from Western University and McMaster. We did one on looting of the Iraqi Museum with a colleague from the University of Chicago. So really, we've done a Hangout with a colleague from the Getty Museum in LA. So really, it's a great tool. It's also really great if you can get people on there talking about a program or an exhibit or something to show that we're collaborating with people all over the world. It's a really great tool to chat with people internationally. So we do that. We've also done a media preview through Hangout, which was really fun. Last year we launched the wildlife photography exhibit, and we had a traditional media preview where we brought in lots of Toronto media, and everyone, we did the speeches and things like that. But in the background on the big screen, we also had a person from the Natural History Museum in London, in the UK, who was in charge of this exhibit, and we had a photographer from Vancouver who submitted photographs to the competition, hang out with us live during the whole media preview. So not only were the reporters in Toronto able to ask questions of ROM staff, they were able to ask questions live of the lady who was in charge of the exhibit at NHM in London, and one of the photographers who submitted photos. So it really it brought this incredible reach through the internet of people on another continent and people at the other side of our continent together in one space in Toronto. So we're always looking for ways to do that kind of thing with our Hangouts. If I hope that answers the question. So another part of the question is, I don't really know where the future of our Hangout program is going. I like that it's always changing and surprising, and we keep an eye on what other people are doing. The California Academy of Sciences has really good Hangouts, National Geographic does really good hangouts. So hopefully we can get some people in the field doing hangouts with us. Depends on Wi-Fi connections and things like that. But love to do some of that stuff in the future um, with our hangouts. And Dave, I don't have anything till 3:30, so don't worry about running out of time unless your class ends and you need to have stuff you need to do. I'm happy to keep chatting if you want. Yeah, technical difficulties. Um, I actually I have a document that I do a lot of work with the Museum Computer Network, which is an entity from the States, and it's really a great network of people who work in this sort of area at institutions around the world. And I did a presentation with my colleagues at MoMA and the Portland Art Museum on Hangouts, and we created a sort of tips and trick document that includes all of the sort of technical difficulties that you can run into when doing a Hangout, and sort of the best practices of doing a Hangout. Because when we did that presentation just about a year ago now in Montreal, a document like that didn't exist because they were so new. You know, there's tons of best practice documents for Facebook and tons of stuff for Twitter, but there wasn't a lot for Hangouts at that time. So I'll send you the link to that as well, Dave, and you can share it with the class. I think the biggest thing for me when doing Hangouts is ensuring that the person that starts the Hangout has a wired connection. The person that's hosting, that's launching the Hangout, needs to be plugged in somewhere with a good connection with high bandwidth. And you can go on, you can Google bandwidth needed for Google Hangouts, and it'll give you the exact number. But I always make sure that I'm not using Wi-Fi when I'm hosting a Hangout. The other thing I make sure is that everything that I'm going to use, whether it's Chrome or any kind of software that I'm using, that it's always up to date, and that I have other things that may be taking up bandwidth in the background, like my Dropbox folder, turned off, so that that all of the bandwidth on your computer is going towards the Hangout, just to ensure that it doesn't freeze or cut out. The other thing I say to people, I'm usually in contact with the people about a month in advance of the Hangout. I share the technical difficulties things, and give them how to sign up for a Gmail account if they don't have one, and how to connect properly. And there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff that goes into producing a Hangout that people don't normally think about. And so that's included in that document to be in contact with your on-air presenters and make sure that they have the things that they need, so that when it comes time for the Hangout, that they're able to connect easily and you can set up without too much hassle. And I usually tell people that to be on their computer ready to go at least an hour before we're good to go live, and that's because like I said earlier, Google sometimes changes stuff and doesn't tell you. So, it's good to be ready for those changes and to give yourself enough time to have everything in order before you go live. The worst thing you can do is tell people, to promote your Hangout and say it's going to happen at whatever time it's going to happen, and it doesn't happen for a half hour later because you had some technical difficulty that you weren't ready for. And I've started many hangouts. Started setting up 15 minutes before and had to start 5 or 10 minutes late because of that exact reason. And so I learned my lesson from that, and now I set up a hangout at least an hour in advance, and make sure everyone's online. And once we get the connection going, people are free to work on whatever it is they're working on, or go grab something to eat, or whatever they need to do. But I usually like to have everything ready to go an hour in advance if possible. Yeah, no worries. I can see everyone's kind of like, get me out of here. I want to go home. Don't worry. um, don't worry. I don't take it personally. I know you guys have probably been there all day. Uh, just want to say that I'm happy to answer any questions you guys may have. If you want to email me or tweet at me, go ahead. My Twitter handle is on. I don't know if you guys can see that, but it's WR Dodger. My email is ryand@rom.on.ca, or you can connect. You can go on the ROM website and find my staff page, and you can send me a message through that as well. More than happy to answer any questions you guys have about any of this kind of stuff. One of the great things about working in this area is that all of us are just experimenting, and we're more than happy to share what we're experimenting on, and the failures we've had and the successes we've had, to try to make sure that other people can capitalize or not fall into the same traps that we have. So yeah, more than happy to do that with you guys if you're interested. Sorry about the technical difficulties, but really appreciate you guys having me in your class today. And again, let me know if you have any questions, okay? Thank you.